Good morning, everyone. Today, I will present a business ethics with case about Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo is a large American bank. However, it has faced many ethical problems during the past 10 years. My main question is, why did misconduct continue even after the bank promised to improve? I will focus on its company culture, honesty, and responsibility. Today, I will like to cover 6 areas. First, I will introduce Wells Fargo. Second, I will explain the current hearing scandal. Third, I will show a timeline of its past misconduct. Next, I will analyze 5 factors: political, economic, social, environmental, and legal. Finally, I will give 5 recommendations and present my conclusions. Wells Fargo was founded in 1855 too. Its headquarters is in San Francisco, California at the end of 2025. The bank had about 205,000 employees. It also had about $2.8 trillion in assets. Wells Fargo operates in the United States and has business locations in 22 other countries. Because the bank is very large, its decisions affect many customers, employees, and investors. Wells Fargo has 4 main business areas. The first is consumer banking and lending. This includes savings account, credit cards, personal loans, and home loans. The second is commercial banking, which provides serving to business. The third is corporate and investment banking. The fourth is wealth and investment management. Because this business share the Wells Fargo name, an ethical problem in one area can damage the whole bank. The current issues involves Wells Fargo's diversity hiring policy. The policy had a good purpose. It require managers to interview diverse candidates for many high-paying positions. However, lawsuits claiming that some interviews were not genuine. In some cases, other persons may have already been selected before the interview. This means that diverse candidates may have had no real chance of getting the job. Wells Fargo denied wrongdoing, but the investor lawsuit ended with an $85 million settlement. This timeline shows that the hiring issues was not the bank's first ethical problems. In 2016, Wells Fargo was punished for opening fake customer accounts. In 2018, the Federal Reserve limited the bank's growth. In 2022, the bank was ordered to pay $3.7 billion in penalties and customer compensations. However, new hiring settlements were approved in 2026. One scandal may be a mistake. A repeated pattern suggests a current culture problem. The diversity goal was not the ethical problem. The problem was the possible use of deception to appear successful. Inside the company, candidates may have been used only to meet an interview requirement. Outside the company, investors were told that the diversity policy was working. A company cannot use dishonest methods. Even its final goals is positive. Good business ethics require both a good objective and an honest process. Whilst operators in a difficult political environment, diversity programs have become a controversial subject in the United States. Climate policies have also faced political pressure from different states. Compounds something needs to respond to new laws and regulations. However, Wells Fargo should not chance its ethical commitments whenever political pressure chance. Its politics should be based on clear principles, evidence, and proper board approval. Repeated misconduct has created large economic costs. Since 2016, major plaintiffs' customer payments and settlements have exceeded $8 billion. The Federal Reserve restriction also limited the bank growth for 7 years. During this period, competing banks were able to continue growing. There is also a hidden cost. Investors may not believe new promise from Wells Fargo. The bank must now provide stronger advice before stakeholders trust its reforms. The scandals have seriously diminished Wells Fargo's reputation. The bank is now often used as an example in business ethics classes. The hiring issues upset both supporters and critics of diversity programs. Supporters felt that minority candidates were being used unfairly. Critics believe that the policy encouraged fake politicians. This is unfortunately because Wells Fargo has real workforce diversity. In 2025, 49% of its American employees came from non-white racial or ethnic groups. Wells Fargo has also changed some of its environmental commitments in 2024. It left the Equator Principles and the Net Zero Banking Alliance. In February 2025, it ended its goal of reaching net zero finance emissions. Research groups estimated that the bank provided about $296 billion in fossil fuels financings between 2016 and 2023. The ethical question is whether its climate promise were genuine or mainly used to improve its public image. Wells Fargo has faced investigations from many government agencies. This includes the Federal Reserve, the CFPB, the SEC, and the Department of Justice. The hiring-related investor case ends with an $85 million settlement. A related case involvement the board ended with a $110 million settlement. However, Wells Fargo did not admit liability. The Department of Justice and the SEC also closed their hiring investigations without taking actions. Something can still raise ethical concerns even when it does not result in criminal charges. I have 5 recommendations for Wells Fargo. First, the bank should check actual hiring results, not only interview numbers. Second, it should create an independent reporting channel for employees. Third, executive pay should depend on long-term ethical improvement. Fourth, merger claimant policy change should require board approval and clear explanations. Fifth, Wells Fargo should publish one complete ethical report. This report should show past misconduct, current reforms, and problems that have not been solved. In conclusion, paying a settlement does not automatically rebuild trust. A settlement can close a legal case, but Wells Fargo's credibility problem developed over many years. The bank has made some progress. For example, the Federal Reserve removed its growth restrictions. However, future promise will only be believed if the same problems stop happening. Real ethical improvement requires honest hiring, responsibility, leadership, clear reporting, and strong board supervision. Thank you for listening. The main lesson from this case is simple: ethical current is shown through repeated actions, not only through public promises. Wells Fargo's future should not be judged only by the amount of money it pays in settlements. It should be judged by whether the bank changes its behavior and prevents similar misconduct from happening again. Thank you. I'm ready to answer any questions.